Welcome. I hope you are having a wonderful night, dear viewer. Tonight, I will be telling some terrifyingly scary stories. Make sure to leave your feedback on the comments so I can make this the best experience for you. And if you have any stories you would like me to tell, you can send them through the link in the description. Let's begin. Story 1. This is a personal story that happened to me and my girlfriend during the summer of 2014 in South Carolina. We had the idea of going on a camping trip, but our initial plan fell through when the place we intended to go charged us double the expected price. Undeterred, we decided to explore a spot close to our hometown, which was more of a boondocking and off-grid location. The best part was that we didn't have to pay anything. We just parked the car and set up camp. The place was truly beautiful, featuring a historic bridge, a trail, and some of the oldest railroad tracks in the southern region. We arrived before sunset, giving us plenty of time to pitch our tent and prepare everything for the night. A few cars were already there, likely belonging to hikers who would leave before nightfall. The only unsettling thing was an old white van with no license plate that looked worn out and rusty. We both noticed it and found it strange, but we dismissed it and proceeded to find a good spot for our camp. After spending several hours enjoying each other's company, taking in the nature around us, and eventually going to sleep, we were suddenly awakened around 3 a.m. by the sound of obscure singing and footsteps near our tent. It's never a good sign when you hear commotion in the early hours of the morning. I cautiously stuck my head out of the tent to investigate but couldn't see anything or anyone. However, the sense of unease made us decide it was best to leave the area when we were both feeling frightened. Just because I couldn't see anything didn't mean there wasn't someone or something out there. I quickly did a hasty walk around our tent, but to no avail. As we quietly gathered our belongings, we swore we could hear the singing getting louder. I distinctly remember some of the words in the song he was singing. "Now won't y'all come out?" followed by a raspy laughter. It was when we were finally packing up the tent that we heard the crunching of leaves and his humming much closer, confirming that this person was nearby. Without hesitation, we fled. I grabbed my girlfriend's hand and threw the tent and folding chairs on my back. We made sure to run in the opposite direction of where the noise was coming from. Fortunately, we had set up camp relatively close to the parking lot, and as we ran and scrambled away from our pursuer, we noticed the lights from the parking lot. To our horror, they weren't just street lights. They were also illuminating the old rusty white van we had seen earlier. We hurried uphill, desperately hoping that the man was alone, because if he had an accomplice, we would have had another person to contend with. Reaching the parking lot and basking in the bright street lights, I noticed my girlfriend's hand twitch slightly, and her pace slowed down. From that, I could tell she was turning her head to get a glimpse of our attacker. I heard her gasp loudly, but I urged her, "Come on, don't look, we're almost there." She refocused, and we continued running together. The man was getting closer. I could hear the gravel crunching under his feet, his wheezing breath, and his menacing shout of, "Don't y'all think you'll get away?" fueled our fear. Just as we made it past the van, we split up. I handed her the keys so she could unlock and start the car while I swiftly threw all the gear into the trunk. We needed to get out of that place. As I frantically loaded the camping gear into the back seat and made my way to the driver's side, I finally faced forward for the first time in a while. In the brightness of the headlights, I saw the man, a behemoth with a stern, wrinkled face and patchy red hair. His goatee was smeared with dirt and grime. His eyes were fixed on us like a predator stalking two helpless prey. It was clear he intended to kill us. "Get back here," he barked. Waving a baseball bat back and forth, I shook my head, refusing to give in to curiosity. With determination, I swerved the car out of the parking lot, and we sped away, our hearts pounding in our chests. In the rearview mirror, we saw the man slam the bat in frustration. It was a narrow escape. We drove to a nearby Waffle House and spent the rest of the early morning hours there, waiting for the sunrise, grateful that we had survived the terrifying ordeal. Story 2. The driver looked relieved that none of my annoying friends were there. He then told me it isn't safe to be out this early in the morning. I didn't really do much other than nod my head since I was wasted, but then the man got a grin on his face. You know, I live quite near this area. Just a funny coincidence. I was a bit weirded out by how this man all of a sudden started talking, but nonetheless, I just nodded and stayed quiet. We finally got to my house. I handed the driver a lot of cash and left the car. As soon as I got home, I just fell onto the couch and fell asleep. I was out like a light for a good few hours until all of a sudden I woke up to the sound of knocking. I was quite hungover, so I quickly matted down my hair and went to look through the peek hole. It was around 4 in the morning. Through the peek hole, I saw a young man, probably around my age if not younger, in a red polo holding a pizza box. I opened the door and told him that I didn't order anything, but he was just standing there still. "Sir, I told you I didn't order anything." "You must have the wrong address," I repeated a bit louder. He just stood there. I had a very painful headache, so I just shut the door on him and this time tried going up to my bed. But when I reached the top of the stairs, I heard knocking again. 4 strikes on the door. I just ignored it, but then it happened again. I got mad, so I ran down to confront him. This time, he was with another guy who looked a few years older. I am 6'1", but this guy had at least a few inches on me, which made me feel a little intimidated. "Listen, I am too tired for any games. If this is just a dumb prank, I suggest you leave right now before I get you in trouble," I said in a raised, concerned voice. The older guy then stepped into my house. Startled, I pushed him out and he fell back a few steps. The younger guy then suddenly opened the empty pizza box and closed it over my head. It only took a few seconds to rip it off, but by then, the older guy had me pinned against the wall and the younger guy ran straight into my house. I was yelling at the top of my lungs, trying to get attention from people in my neighborhood, but the older man kept covering my mouth and kicking my shin. I was fearing for my life as the younger guy came back through with a knife and stabbed me right in the chest. I didn't even feel pain at first. I was in complete shock. The older guy left me to fall to the floor, and I remember having blurry vision and seeing another 4 dudes run into the house. I was still conscious, so I quickly grabbed my phone and called the police before passing out. I woke up to police sirens. Turns out the guys trashed my house and left. The police said that none of the guys were caught, but they did catch another intruder. I was stunned when I saw that the intruder that they caught was actually the taxi driver. The police had called the ambulance, and they brought me to the hospital to help my knife injury. Nothing else really happened, but I did end up realizing that they stole my good watch. I'm guessing the taxi driver saw my good watch on me and wanted to steal it by setting up a whole house invasion. I was so mad, but I was still thankful that they didn't manage to permanently hurt me. I got my house fixed up in a few hours, and at that point all I was missing was my watch. I was telling my friends about it, and they told me that they actually got texts from the taxi driver telling them to come to my house for whatever reason. It was weird as hell, and I don't know what happened to the other intruders. But I did move to another area and haven't been bothered since. It has been 7 years since that happened, but I still won't ever forget it. It was a Saturday night. I just came back from the bar with my friends. We all got a taxi and were all getting dropped off. We were all drunk as shit, but when I am drunk, I am usually quiet. My friends were all loud and annoying, and the taxi driver just looked fed up. The taxi driver was an older man, presumably late 30s, early 40s, whereas me and my friends were all mid-20s. We all had different destinations, so I would pay him extra for all the trips. Each of us got dropped off back at our house one after the other, until all my friends were home and it was just me and the taxi driver. Story 3. Just a little information for you all before I tell my story. My job is to find missing people. Families and police stations usually call me and others like myself to find said people. Over the course of my career, I've found quite a few people, but some I've never been able to find. Despite that, I took pride in my job because I could find and help people. But after this case, I haven't been the same. I will warn those with weak stomachs that what I'm about to say isn't suited for some. A few years back, I was contacted by a family I'm friends with. They were searching for their missing daughter and her 2 friends. They had gone on a cross-country road trip. A week into their road trip, all contact between them and their families was cut off. The families went to the local police, but there wasn't much they could do, so they turned to me. The case was somewhat personal, so to say I was impatient to find them was an understatement. I first had the families pull up their messages between them and their children. I had to cover every base, from them wanting to run away from home to someone wanting to harm them. I got the license plate to the car they took and ran it through multiple databases to find it in any CTVs along the roads they took. I got a ping that the car was seen at a gas station a few states over. The gas station was on a long, desolate road. The road itself wasn't in the best condition, and the gas station didn't look all that good. Upon showing the clerk at the gas station their pictures, he confirmed that he had seen him. They looked fine at the time and were headed west. I thanked him and followed the road westwards. While driving down the road, my tire went out and I crashed into the side railings. Thankfully, I didn't sustain any injuries, but I was now stranded in the middle of nowhere. I decided to survey the area and noticed that the trees looked damaged. The sun was setting, so I grabbed my flashlight and peeked over the edge of the railings. Perhaps the car went off into the gully. I placed the flashlight in my chest pocket and climbed down the hill. At the bottom of the hill lay a wrecked car. The car looked so heavily damaged that they shouldn't have been able to get out. But somehow, there was no one inside. Though dried and nearly concealed by foliage, there were some blood splotches. I went to my radio to call for some police officers and an ambulance. But to my dismay, all I got was static. A twig snapped behind me, and before I had the chance to turn around, something hard connected with my head. And I found my vision go dark, and my mind blank. I woke up in near pitch darkness, except for the light bulb that hung above me. My head throbbed painfully. What the hell happened? Assessing my condition, I was strapped to a chair with my legs and arms firmly bound. Based on my surroundings, I assumed I was in a basement. It smelled of rot and mold, and I struggled to not throw up. I could hear rats scurrying around just out of my line of sight. A door opened, and in walked a man who was so mutated, it was hard to say he was even human. "Hey, who the hell are you?" I shouted. He came closer, and I could see a horrible grin plastered on his face. He held a knife in one hand. "You're the one who took those 3 girls, weren't you? What did you do to them?" I asked. He didn't respond, but he had a displeased look on his face. Before I knew it, he stabbed the knife into my hand. My body jolted from the pain, and I wanted to scream out in agony. But I held it in. "You sick bastard, you probably get off to this." "Huh. Well, hate to break it to you, but it'll take more than that to make me scream," I retorted through heavy breaths. He tilted his head and began twisting the knife in my hand. The pain was unbearable, but I refused to give him what he wanted. I couldn't help the tears that built up in my eyes and quickly fell. He was still dissatisfied, so he pulled the knife from my hand. He placed it over my pinky, lining it up. I struggled against my binds as I knew what he was about to do. However, before I could protest, he slammed the knife down. I couldn't hold my screams any longer. "Son of a bitch. Go to hell, you motherfucker," I screamed in agony. I heard his sick laugh echo throughout the basement. "Got you." Just like that, he picked up my finger and left me in the basement to suffer alone in agony. The pain clouded my brain and made it hard to think straight. After what felt like hours, I passed out from the pain and blood loss. I woke up once more and saw that my hand was bandaged with a dirty cloth. I looked up to see a horrific sight. In front of me sat a table with remains laid on it. I gagged at the sight. In his hands were a bowl and spoon. He was stirring the spoon in the bowl and turned towards me. Upon seeing I was awakened, he came over to me. The smell was putrid, and I could feel my stomach turning at the sight of the contents of the bowl. I turned away, but he grabbed my face and forced my mouth open. He shoved the spoon in my mouth. It was horrible, and tears filled my eyes. I spit the contents back out and vomited. He looked unhappy that I didn't eat it. He set the bowl down and walked over to a wall which held multiple tools. He grabbed some pliers and came back over to me. "What are you gonna do?" I asked, breathless. He didn't answer as he pulled off 3 of my fingernails. Tears fell from my eyes, and I screamed. His smile widened, and he laughed, his creepy, sick laugh. "You son of a bitch," I yelled. He didn't mind me, and simply grabbed my fingernails, leaving me alone once more. Blood dripped from my fingertips. I hung my head low from exhaustion. Just how long have I been here? Out of sheer desperation, I moved my injured hand, and much to my surprise, it was easier to move than my other hand, perhaps due to the blood that coated it. I twisted and turned my hand slowly, releasing it from its bindings a little at a time. My hand and arm ached from the tight pull of the bindings, but after what felt like forever, my hand was free. I panted from the pain and held my hand close to my chest to relieve some of the pain. I then released my other hand and feet from the bindings. I rushed for the door, but it was locked. I searched around the basement, the dim light of the bulb being my only salvation. In one of the corners, I found a flashlight in a box. I flipped it on and was able to see considerably better. The basement floor was covered in old stains and rotten pieces of flesh. I dry heaved and focused on finding a weapon I could use. Unfortunately, whenever he left, he took his tools he had on the wall with him. I searched around and miraculously found a crowbar he left behind. I unscrewed the light bulb from its socket and fell into total darkness, except for the light from the flashlight. I hid in a concealed area behind the door and waited for him to come back. After a while, I heard heavy footsteps and readied myself in the encompassing darkness. The metal door screeched open and he stepped into the basement. Perhaps due to the unexpected darkness in the once poorly lit basement, he paused. I used that to my advantage and swung the crowbar as hard as I could against the back of his head. He grunted and fell over. I ran up the stairs, tripping over some uneven boards, and came out into an old, rundown, and decrepit house. I rushed through the house and barged through the front door. I ran into the chilly night air. I could hear sounds from within the house, and dread filled me. How was he up already? I ran blindly through the woods, tripping over tree roots and slipping on leaves covered in dew. I stepped on something cold and metallic, and before I had time to react, it clamped down on my leg. The bear trap broke my leg in several places, and I screamed as I fell over. I could hear movement in the woods from the direction I'd come from. I knew it was him. I pried the trap open and thankfully got my leg out. My leg was messed up beyond belief. It was mangled, and I could barely stand on it. The noise got closer, so I forced myself to run. This, however, didn't work, and he appeared right behind me and tackled me down. He had an ice pick and was trying to stab me with it. I struggled with him and managed to knock it out of his hands. I kneed him in the gut, which released his hold on me, and I scrambled for the ice pick. He grabbed my mangled leg and dragged me back to him. I couldn't breathe and felt my consciousness slipping as I blindly grabbed for the ice pick. I felt the cool metal and saw a ray of hope. I grabbed it in my hand, and with one swift movement, I hurt him. I pulled it out as his body recoiled. He fell back onto the ground, making a gurgling noise. I struggled up and continued limping onwards. I soon found a dirt road, which led me to the highway. I collapsed on the side of the highway just as a car spotted me and pulled over. The person rushed to me as I succumbed to the darkness. I don't know much of what happened after that, but I woke up in a hospital a few days later. I was told that I was probably held in that basement for about 4 to 5 days. I was told I had gotten lucky, but I didn't really feel like I had. Everything that happened broke me. How could I tell those families what had really happened to their children? For months after everything happened, I still couldn't stand the smell or sight of meat. In the end, I wasn't able to tell them. A police officer who arrived at the scene had to. This case really fucked me up mentally and physically. I walked with a limp and relied on a cane. Mentally, I was even more screwed up. I could longer stand being near sharp objects, being in dark places, and I could no longer perform my job properly. I quit once I got well enough to go out and about. I'd like to say that somehow I'll get over this, but even after 4 years, I haven't mentally recovered from it. I'm not sure why I decided to share this. Maybe I just needed to let it out. But stay safe. Nonetheless, everyone, I'm putting this here to let everyone know this story is completely fiction. The events that happened in the story are not real, so rest assured.